Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. Before I go home to Scotland, we're going to visit the Klosterbrauerei Andechs one more time and take a little look at the export Dunkel beer. Now this one, as I've mentioned in the other reviews, they all have different colours on their labels. So as you can plainly see, this guy is the blue one. I think there's green, red, yellow, blue, gold, silver, and I think there's a few others as well. So hopefully in the future I can come back to Germany and get more of the different Andechs beers for you. They're really good, and I recommend you check out this brewery if you haven't done so already. But as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery, and in this case the monastery as well. The link to the brewery website is in the video description, so check that if you want to have a little closer look at the brewery for yourself. And as I always say, if you are simply interested in the tasting of this beer, then feel free to go towards the latter part of the video. So in past times, the brewing of beer was as much a part of the daily chores as was baking bread, cleaning the house, that sort of thing. But this was true of all the cultures in what is today known as southern Germany. But the beer was actually brewed at home for the family's own consumption, or it was brewed jointly in the village brewery. And some of these breweries actually still operate in this manner today, particularly in the Franconia and Upper Palatinate regions of Germany. But likewise, the monks at Germany's numerous monasteries actually brewed beer for their own consumption, and this was the foundation for the Benedictine monks of the Andechs monastery in Tegernsee, and they began brewing beer in the year 1455, and this was apparently before they actually apparently had an extensive knowledge of brewing beer before this date. But the Benedictine monks have apparently been serving up Christian hospitality for centuries, and chapter 53 of the Rule of Benedictine, which St. Benedict himself wrote, it says, "Let all guests who arrive be received like Christ, for he is going to say, I came as a guest and you received me." And this is from, I believe, the way to say it is Matthew chapter 25 verse 35. But thus the guests to the monastery were treated to a helping of the Andechs beer. And apparently the Benedictine monastery in St. Gallen is one that's considered to be one of the monasteries who embraced this monastery beer culture to the maximum. And while their building was never complete, the plans showed space for no less than 3 breweries, and apparently each one would brew a different type of beer. In the first one you had a simple thinner beer for the poor pilgrims and guests. In the second one you had a normally brewed beer for the monks, and then in the third one you had a particularly strong beer that was brewed for the abbots and high-ranking guests. And in those times, as you can see, the quality of beer was judged on its strength, of course. But throughout Germany, the Christian monks, if you like, are largely regarded as being the first professional brewers. And back in the Middle Ages, much of their experience in brewing came from observations and writing down what they saw. So many monasteries actually also shared their brewing experience with each other. So there was a lot of collaboration going on even in these early days. But they were also the monks were also the first to become well versed in other types of food production, such as sausages, bread, cheese, milk, and all that sort of thing. But beer has been brewed in the Andechs monastery since the Middle Ages, when Albrecht III of the House of Wittelsbach, which is the Duke of Bavaria apparently, when he founded the Benedictines monastery on Andechs mountain. So in 1850 the monastery became the possession of the Abbey of St. Boniface in Munich, and Peter Magnus Sattler left a huge imprint on the brewery as it is today, and he modernised the monastery and the outbuildings, and which prepared the brewery for the times ahead. And in 1871 he actually converted the brewery to steam power, and in the year 1893 and 1894 he renovated the cask barn and the brew house respectively. Now Paters Augustin Engel and Maurus Rath were actually responsible for other developments in the brewery, such as the new malt house in 1906 and new filling facilities later in 1925 and 1958. And in 1968 the malt house was closed, and brother Oswald Esser, the last brewer of the Andechs monastery, actually went into retirement. But the brewery was actually beginning to suffer from a lack of space at the Holy Mountain, and the Abbey was then faced with the question of either having to close the brewery or venture on a new building, but they decided to do the latter, and under the supervision of Pater Daniel Gelritzen, a new building was constructed at the foot of the Holy Mountain, and thus the brewery had space to grow. And this process of building the new brewery at the foot of the mountain began in 1972, and over the years many additions and alterations were made to the brewery, and the filling building apparently was completed in 1974, and the fermentation and storage cellars began operations in 1984. Pater Anselm Bilgry also expanded the brewery's sales division during this time, and in 1990 and 1991 the new bottling facility was renovated, and the suggestion of Abbot Odilo Lechner light and dark Weizen beers have actually been added to the range, and these were added in 1993 and 1997 respectively. But today the company are committed to continually modernising the facilities to maintain a steady business and security for their employees, and they've also been presented with the EMAS certification from the EU, and this is the Eco Management and Audit Scheme. And many companies in Germany are very, very proud of their regions and things like that, and they say that the quality of their beer is the fact that they take it from the local region. They take all their ingredients in from their local area, and they help in the preservation of their region. A lot of breweries in Germany are very, very proud of that. But the brewery apparently source all of their ingredients from Bavaria, like I said, and all the hops come from the Tettnanger region, which is the biggest hop producing region in the world. So let's get this guy out and have a little look at the beer itself. I'm interested to do the tasting of this one. I've had it on draft before and it was really good. This one is actually considerably less on the smaller on the Richter scale, if you like, than the other ones. This guy is only 4.9%, whereas the other ones were pushing 7%. So as you can see, there's the label on the bottle there. It's all the same label as I've mentioned before, you just get them in different colours. That's the Andechs monastery at the foot of the mountain in Tegernsee. So you can see there's the top label as well, and it has the standard gold Andechs bottle cap on this one, the nice sort of blue and gold mixture there with the monastery crest. And as you can see, it says Zeit 1455, so founded in 1455, as we mentioned in the history of the brewery. And it's got one of these things, I can't remember what you call these, but it's got one of these little things you can scan with your smartphone as well, which is quite cool. This guy is apparently best by the 27th of October 2014. So let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting. As I mentioned, it's a 4.9% Dunkel beer. Nice smoky open in there. It's a nice, definitely a nice sort of chestnutty, maybe rosewood mahogany colour as you pour this out. It's got a nice red tint to it actually. As you can see, a nice sort of beige head forming at the top of the beer. Typical of the German beers to have this kind of head, as I've mentioned before. That's everything actually come out of that. That's poured quite nicely. I did that quite well, I have to say. So as you can see, if I hold this up to the light, it's a nice chestnutty mahogany colour. There is the sort of ruby edging to it, although it is a more of a chestnutty brown. You can see a two-fingered frothy beige head on this one. There's actually, I can't see any carbonation with this one at all. Oh no, there's some just over the back of the glass there. There is just a tiny little bit of small bubbles kind of coming up to the top of the glass there. But a really attractive looking beer. And like I say, I've had this one on draft before, and it is really, really nice on the fresh draft. Whether it beats the Doppelbock on draft, I'm not quite sure. But let's give this guy a smell. A lot of roasted caramel with this one, as you would expect from the Dunkel style of beer. You're getting some of the kind of dark fruity esters in the back of the nose as well. So maybe some plums and raisins, I guess. I'm not very good at actually telling the individual fruits when it comes to these kind of dark beers, but definitely some plums and raisins, I would say. It's a really, you pick up on the fruity esters. It's something I really need to kind of tune my nose to a little bit more. But yeah, definitely some dark fruit esters in there, but mainly an aroma of kind of roasted caramel, and there is some sort of brown bread element in there as well, you know, sort of wholemeal bread, so quite cool in that regard. And you can see the head's actually just gone down to just be a foamy layer now. Not retained very well. But yeah, definitely roasty notes. There's actually even a hint of some chocolate in there, I think, as well. But it's really a mix of roasted malt, caramel malt, and there's some nice fruity esters at the end of this one. Some chocolate and brown bread, like I say. So let's give this guy a taste and see how we get on. Very roasty is the first impression I'm getting. Very roasted. Yeah, a very roasted aroma. The chocolatey flavours are actually coming out a little bit more, and the caramel is pushed to the background there. Yeah, the caramel is the caramel flavours are going to the sort of top of the mouth, if you like, and the roasted kind of coffee, dark chocolate character is the thing that's sticking on the edges of the tongue. And in the middle, in fact, it's kind of dominating the tongue, if I'm honest with you. It is a very roasted malt beer with a lot of chocolate in there and just some sort of subtle caramel notes as well. It's really nice. but you can pick up the sort of brown bready element as well, just mixing in with these roasted coffee malts and caramel. So it's a really, really well balanced beer. In fact, I'm quite impressed with that. So it's the malt base of this one is really, really good, and that's what made the Doppelbock beer stand out as well. The Doppelbock was fantastic, and there's a really good balance of flavour in here as well. So this brewery, it seems that this brewery is quite well specialised in the kind of darker beers. Yeah, on the second part of the beer, you're starting to get a little bit of the fruits coming out, and the chocolate's still mixing in with these fruits as well. So I am getting the raisin and plum flavours out of this one. There maybe even is some kind of red berries in there as well. It is really quite sweet as you go past the malt base in this one. Yeah, it's got a really nice kind of subtle fruit sweetness to it. And it's very, very well balanced. This is the thing with all the Andechs beers. They seem to balance the flavour of these guys really, really well. I'd be interested to know just how big of a batch they actually brew all of these in, because it's one thing, they do seem to get some really good flavour out of these beers. But yeah, on the end, it's definitely the sort of fruity esters with the plum and raisin flavours, a little bit of berry fruits as well. And the chocolate just mixes in quite well with that, I would say. In terms of the mouth, this one's actually, it's very smooth, and it's a lot lighter than some of the Dunkels I have had. It is quite a wet, oily mouthfeel, which is quite nice. So it's quite a surprisingly drinkable one. It maybe even would benefit from being just a little bit thicker, in honesty. But nonetheless, it's a very drinkable, very rich flavoured and drinkable beer at the same time, which makes it quite cool. It has a slight little bit of dry character, I would say, as well. But overall, it's a really, really good beer, and I recommend you try it. But yeah, I really like this one, I have to say. Whether it beats the Doppelbock Dunkel, you know, which is, for many people, that Doppelbock Dunkel is the sort of benchmark of the style, if you like. Whether this one can beat that, I'm not so sure, but it is a really, really good beer within its own right, and anything you get from the Andechs brewery, you're certainly not going to be disappointed with it. The Bergbock Hell, as I mentioned in my last review, is a really interesting one because it takes the nice elements from both the Hell beer and the Dunkel and mixes it really, really well. And these guys seem to be the masters of getting some really rich flavour in their beer. So if you're into that sort of thing, you know, give the Andechs brewery a try. If you've not heard of Andechs before, you know, come out the cave and explore German beer a little bit more, because these guys are a really top class brewery, and one of the oldest in Germany as well, as far as I'm aware. So I hope you found my beer review informative. As I say, check out the Andechs brewery. The link to the brewery website is in the video description there. I've got a few other video reviews from the brewery if you're interested in that, and there will be more added in the future when I come back to Germany. So let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on this beer, and indeed the Andechs brewery. I thank you again for your support over my 190 or so videos that it is now, and please like, subscribe, share, comment, all the usual YouTube stuff. Help the channel grow. Your support's much appreciated, and we'll be back soon again with another beer review. Cheers.